All right, folks, it's Mr. Golem. It's Friday night, and I'm thinking about making a movie this weekend. I wanted to share with you different tools that you might have around your house that you can use to make your film a little bit better and a little bit more efficient. Yael told me that you have iPhones to film with, so I'm going to assume that everyone's going to use one of these tools to make their movie. A couple tips. When you use the video camera mode, always hold it horizontally. Don't make your movie up and down. That's an easy one. I'm sure you won't get that wrong. But there's a couple things you can do to kind of improve the quality of your footage. Of course, make sure you're on the selected frame rate. I said 30 in 1080p or 720p is fine. I'd also suggest to maybe, if you're hand holding your camera, zoom in a tiny bit by just dragging. And it's gonna just enable a little bit more stabilization built into the camera. And it's actually really surprisingly stable. I can move around my hands a lot, and the footage doesn't really get too jittery. So that's pretty cool. So there's a couple tips for the specific camera situation. Of course, when you're filming, you can also adjust the exposure and the focus by tapping on an area, and then you can drag the sliders to make it darker or lighter depending on what you're doing. My tip would be to always expose a scene for the brightest area. So if you have like a bright light in your scene, like I kind of do here, I don't know if you can see it that well. You're gonna want to make sure we can see the brightest areas. So that means you got to pay attention to where you're filming. I wouldn't put a light behind your subject unless you want to create an effect like we saw happen in Citizen Kane this week. Tools. So there's a couple things. I have a few things to hit here. The first one, if you're doing a dolly shot or a truck, find something with wheels. I have a skateboard, but I can't really get on it right now because of health issues. But any kind of rolling object, put a camera into the hands of somebody and roll them, and now you're doing a dolly shot. You could also do this with a car. If you're outdoors and someone's walking, a car can do a good job with that. If you're doing handheld shots and you want it to be a little less jittery, add some more mass to your phone. Here is an example. If you take some rubber bands, you can, and I hope this works good, it has to be really affixed. This is a 5-pound weight here. But all I have is just some rubber bands holding my phone on there. I would probably put a couple more if I was really gonna do this. And I feel like, yeah, it's kind of bouncing around, but you can really get this set up, I think, by adding some more mass and holding it at the top. And now that phone is not gonna move a whole lot while I'm filming. Now, my arm will probably get tired, but that's kind of cool. You could also do it with a hammer. So a hammer has a nice low center of gravity, right? If I hold it up here and I mount the phone down here with rubber bands, it's less likely it's gonna kind of jump around with my hand motion. But again, it's up to you. It's what you want to portray in your filming. But if you're just expecting to hold the camera and just with whatever, and think about how you want the camera to move, especially if you're moving your body as you're doing a shot. You want to make sure it's steady so we can see what you're showing us. If you're doing a static shot, you can use something like, an iPhone stand, or just kind of a stand to hold your phone in one location. You can kind of see that there. And they also sell these kind of things. Some of you might have one of these in a drawer. I certainly did. Just a little bit of a tripod thing. I like this device quite a bit. I'm actually going to make a shot at the end of this video and I'll be using something like this to film it. So you probably can't see that on camera, but you know, this will let me hold my camera steady. So that's kind of a neat thing. Yeah, when you're doing high and low angle, just get creative. You don't always have to have a camera in the hands of the camera person. You can put it on top of a bookshelf. You can put it low on the ground so you see a lot of the ground. You know, think about the creative ways that filmmakers have set up their shots. When you're actually filming, you see this in the movies all the time. Yes, you should probably say action and cut if you're filming with actors. That's a good idea. Make sure that happens after you show them your clapboard, so when you're editing, you know what scene you're doing. I have a couple other notes here. I wrote multiple takes are okay. Think about the tools you get when you're editing, right? You get to set up the story. You get to connect shots together. So if you have multiple takes of the same scene, so the same shot, you can edit them together to make them more cohesive, to keep the best parts, to tell the story in a special way. And I was also going to add, try to get good coverage of your scenes. So if you want to plan multiple angles, think about the different angles you can shoot a scene. So this is a little bit of a standoff type scene. Here, I might move this a little closer for you. We've got two cowboys walking towards each other, right? We could put a camera here to capture this subject. You can see what that looks like. It's just a side profile. Same for the other guy. You could do a camera back here to capture both of them. But what you don't do is you don't put a camera across the other side of them. This is called the axis of action. Think of it like a stage setup. If you're watching a play on stage, you don't just put audience members behind the stage to see other angles. You know, we think of our subjects in the scene, and we want to keep all of the camera angles on one side of that line. It's called the axis of action. And they actually also call this the 180-degree rule. So we wouldn't put a camera on the other side of this. This is not a good spot to put the camera. I'll post links in the description to these images so you can see what I'm talking about. So thinking about that when you're setting up your shots. Okay, so what you're gonna see next is me just doing a test run with some lighting that I found around my house that I want to use for one of my scenes. I'm going to try to film it from a couple angles with my iPhone, and I'll edit them all together. So yeah, that's it. Peace. Heads up that this is going to have a lot of flashing lights, so if you are sensitive to flashing lights, don't watch this because it might hurt your brain. Okay. So what a lot of filmmakers do is they make reference shots. They do test shots. They set up locations and they go out and scout for spaces to film. They test out different technologies. So when they get out there and actually make the thing, it actually will work, and they'll know that all the people on site will be able to do a good job and they'll be able to capture it. But if they don't do the testing beforehand, they don't ever really know if they will be able to do it on the day. So if you have something weird that you got to do in your movie like me, maybe test it out before you try getting everyone to help you film it. I guess the last thing I noticed here is that these shots are all horribly framed, and I'm going to need somebody to help me to shoot my movie. I don't think I could do this solo. So maybe that's what the next video will be about. Thanks. Peace.